Welcome to the DevLaunch Podcast, bringing you insights from industry experts on how to grow the digital agency you love. In today's episode, I sit down with Meg Schlabs, the co-founder of Wizardly, to uncover how she turned workplace conflict into a powerful partnership and embraced intentional growth to avoid burnout. If you're looking for strategies to balance ambition, growth, and well-being, this one is a must listen. Well, welcome, Meg, to the DevLaunch Podcast. I'm super excited to have you join us today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So I have to admit something. I've been watching some of your videos.
Oh,
and
pretty funny.
I love them. I absolutely love it. And I'll tell you why. The reason why I love it is I know Wizardly is a design company, but it's like design and branding together. And my favorite thing is when I see professionals, especially in the agency space, who like live out the thing that they do. And I think like when I see your guys' videos, something that comes through very clearly is like you have a brand persona and it comes out in the way that you guys post content and the way you guys do your videos and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, and even down to like the visual design, I'm like, this is so good. I love it.
That's such a good compliment. Thank you. I'm so glad that our brand is actually doing its job. That it shows the type of people we are. We're fun. We're relatable. We all breathe oxygen, you know?
Yes.
We're like real humans. So,
and it's so great. Like even the, what's the thing that I think multiple people have said it on the videos. It's wizardly.co.
Oh man, we tried so hard. So the backstory on that is that we just went through negotiations to get the wizardly.com domain, and the price tag was just so astronomical that we could not justify it. And so, so we're like, we're going to own it. Yeah. And we're a cute little family, you know, we're a cute little company. I don't think it has bad connotations. So
no, not at all. And it's just, the overall experience, the brand experience, I feel like it's just so good. And it's always a good sign when you're working with somebody who they eat, live, and breathe this stuff, and they eat their own, they take their own medicine.
Yeah. That's good. We take our brand really seriously, and it's been really fun to blow it up. And as you know, once you feel proud of it, you can't stop sharing it because you just, it's like little pieces of you out into the world. So you're very, very accurate with that.
Very, very much true. Well, Meg, I know we've got a lot of different topics to talk about, but one of the things that stood out to me when you and I were having our initial conversation is your guys' approach to growth, right? Like I know that you've taken it, you've understood that what you are building is something that it's not going to grow super, super fast, super quickly, or any of that kind of stuff. But you guys are really taking a very intentional approach to your growth and really trying to go deep with the client relationships that you have. And I think that's a pretty unique perspective. You know, I think typically when I'm talking with digital agencies, it's either, I kind of just stumbled into it, or there's a smaller subset of people who are maybe they are really aiming for exit, and so they're very, very growth oriented and really trying to push super hard. But I think to strike that balance of just like we are growing but not super fast, I think is unique for your guys' approach. So I'd love to have you. Would you mind just like walking us through how you and your team decided on that slower growth strategy?
Yes, thank you for asking about that. And I will say that not all of it was a decision we made. There are so many different factors to how, why, when you grow, and so many of those are unknown. So it's more about like you're on this journey, and every quarter you're making new decisions about what your company needs and where we're going to grow into. But as far as when it came to growing our internal team, I think one benefit that Josh and I, my co-founder Josh at Wizardly, one benefit we had is that we had been a two-man team for 5 years, and we had like been churning and burning our own bodies, down to the ground, and had learned very quickly that that's really no way to live forever. Like it works for a certain period of time, as you know. Everybody's been in that like raw season before, and just had to go after a project really hard, 80 hours a week, etc. But that was not ever going to work for us long term. So we kind of learned that lesson internally before we decided to scale into a full agency. So we knew before we decided to scale that we were never going to run our team like that. On the flip side, we observed that happening to a lot of our friends. So our friends grew up being designers or web dev people would go to work for a bigger agent, and things were great at the time. The agency had great income, lots of, maybe not a lot of clients. These agencies tended to have two or three big clients, whale clients, which, as we know, is a no-no. And yeah, so they hired a big team, brought them all in, and after the clients were gone, all that team, yeah, they went bye-bye. And it was so painful to watch my own friends go through that journey and get the layoffs. And so we've always hired with a lot of fear and trepidation, and taken it slow. And so that's point one. Can I keep going?
Yeah, totally.
Okay,
Well,
that's
actually,
point one.
let me follow up on that point, because I think this has actually been a topic that we've been discussing on a couple of the recent episodes, is when dealing with clients that are more enterprise clients, which is not uncommon as an agency, right? Especially because it's like, it's that whole thing of like, the bigger clients are the ones that have the money. And so they can afford, larger teams, larger projects, that kind of stuff. So it can feel really appealing, especially if in your mind, what you really think you want is revenue growth and size growth, all this kind of stuff. But then your point, which is a great one, is, but you've seen agencies crash and burn because they go and hire this massive team, and then they have to lay off a third of them or a half of them because they lost that big, 50% of their revenue in one client.
Exactly. Yeah. It's really painful to see that upwards momentum and then the downwards crash. And it's painful for everybody. It's painful for leadership too. Like it's hard to predict where sales is going to go for a company. That's why guys like you exist. So I think on a totally unrelated note, and I'm really curious to hear your thoughts, Tony, if you have observed something similarly. But I am a mom. I've got medium-sized kids. Josh is a dad. He's got two little guys. And I think post-COVID gave us a chance to rethink the way we work. So it's not just the same way that we worked with mom and dad. We don't have to always go in an office. And this is the part that I'll hop on a little soapbox about, because I think that actually COVID taught the workplace a lot of empathy. So I can see how us sitting in remote meetings for 2 years and seeing what a mom or dad was actually literally going through to show up to work every day with their kids on the tube in the background, like that gave us empathy for a workplace that existed differently. Also, I think it gave us empathy for the human body and how frail we are. And like, I don't know if you notice this, but our clients, like when you're sick, you're running a fever now, they're like, go away. And I didn't get any of that from clients beforehand. I didn't get any of that or I didn't run my own body that way. I would just push it. So anyway, I'm excited about the slower growth mentality for Wizardly. And I'm excited to see how long we can treat contractors like, give them both job security, financial security, and a community, but flexibility. And so that's something we're going to attempt to do alongside our full-time employees, and see if that the work culture continues to grow in that space. So
yeah. And I think, growing with intentionality, I think can oftentimes be misunderstood. It can be misconstrued as, oh, they're not ambitious enough, or, oh, they're not capable of growth. And I think the thing that I wish that we could maybe fight against with that is recognize that, in my experience, I think some of the most ambitious people are the ones who have started their agency, and who, even though they've started it, they're not letting the agency's growth dictate the entirety of their lives, right? Like you talked about, you've got medium-sized kids, which, we've got 4 very, very young kids. And yeah, there's a lot that goes into it. And I think for me, if I'm being totally honest, like scrolling through LinkedIn, it can be really easy to get sucked up into this culture of, not calling them out, but the Hormozis. I think he has a lot of great things to bring to the table in terms of how to grow businesses. But admittedly, he himself will admit that, like, essentially his whole focus is business. Like, they don't have kids. They don't want kids because they know that kids would be a detraction from it. And so I think for people like us, and I assume like a lot of other listeners, you it's hard to sacrifice all of this, family time and this other stuff that's not work when, in reality, like the life that we're trying to build is something that is more than just money.
I know. You're so right. I love that. That's a really good way to say it too. I unfortunately was born just like a very ambitious person, and I've always been that way. So I will always have to put a corral around like and give my own self boundaries so that I'm not burning out. But one way I've been able, and I'm just thinking of this for the first time, but I think one thing that has kept me from burning out in one area of my life is realizing that I want to be ambitious about all of the areas of my life. I want to be ambitious about the relationships I'm building with my kids that, they don't suffer due to me being at work more than 40 hours a week. I want to be ambitious about being a better volleyball player. And if I sprinkle that ambition out, like I actually get a more well-rounded or robust life out of the deal. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if this is the case for you, but like, have you ever experienced, or are you experiencing the tension of wishing you had been growing more, or have you gotten to a place where you're pretty content with the growth that you guys have at Wizardly?
Yeah, I struggle with contentment. And my partner in business is the flip side. So we balance each other really, really well because he's able to look back and say, look at what we've done. Also, we got these kids. We got, like we're very multifaceted people. But I don't think personality wise, I will ever stop pushing. So and I don't think that's a bad thing. Gosh, I want to build a really good team and I want them to be very happy to come to work every day. Like I think I have really great goals. Where it slips into a negative area for our group is when they don't think that I'm seeing all the growth that we have had and like the progress we have made. So I think if I can balance those two, but definitely I want more sales. I want a bigger team. I mean, I have plans for that in Q4. I have plans for that next year. So we are always growing and scaling and hopefully we're having a lot of fun right now. I don't think we're looking for exit, but hopefully building that team slow over time with good operations, good community, we'll be able to exit and 10 plus years and be happy. So,
yeah. Well, and I want to call out though, because I think you would be a great example of this. And what I have observed is, yes, a lot of agency owners who have ambitions for a well-rounded life. And it's not to say that they're not ambitious about what they're building. Cause like you said, like if anything, there needs to be there's a throttling back that needs to happen. Like you're driving forward and that's necessary, but there's also like a balance that needs to take place. Do you feel like, because you'd started your business with your business partner, right? You guys didn't like come into business after a couple of years operating solo?
No, we did. We were operating as two like independent contractors who hired each other. And and so we hired each other for so long that we looked up one day and we had all the same clients, and that's when we decided to throw in together. Yeah,
just make a business. And I know we're gonna get into your guys' story because I know we've got some good stuff to talk about with that. But I think it's helpful to hear though, like there is a category for ambition and drive in the agency space without it being about sacrificing everything else. Like you can have both.
Yeah, you brought up an interesting point, which I kind of wanted to rabbit hole on for a second, about the looks that you get or the outside pressure that exists when you don't give it 500% and burn yourself out. There's sort of like especially in America, a culture of that, just like, well, why aren't you working yourself into the ground? And I don't know. How do you combat that? I'm curious. Do you just ignore it and let it go away?
If I'm being totally honest with you, this is actually a topic that I was just talking with my men's group. So I have every Tuesday morning, I have a small men's group and we meet and we talk, we pray. But yeah, I have to bring this up pretty regularly because I think for me, it comes from a place of, I think there's some pride in growth. Yes. I think there's some, one of the things I talk about in my own personal life is whose kingdom am I building? Right. And I think if I'm not careful, I can make all of this growth about myself.
Yeah. Ooh.
And in reality, like it's not about me. You know
No.
what I mean? It's this duality of being a strong leader is you're
Mhm.
simultaneously, like you're talking about, you're driving towards something because there's a fire that's in you, and that's a good thing,
Mhm.
but you're also not driving because like you're at the center of it.
No. Yeah. Yeah. That is really good. I love that perspective shift because that's actually easier than
Mm-hmm.
combating. Working on this is something you have control of.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You don't have control of what other people think of you and and that culture that exists in our world. Like that's just going to be, but we do have control to change our perspective. So
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, I know this episode is going to air quite a bit later, but like even the post I have scheduled for tomorrow on LinkedIn talks about this very thing. So
No
hopefully,
way. Yeah,
yes,
I'm gonna look it up. I like it.
yes, the timing was good. So could you talk to us about, as we're talking about growth and, taking an intentional growth mindset to how your business continues to grow,
Mm.
would you mind talking to us about the challenges that you face in growing, not super fast, but just kind of growing even keeled and steady? What are some of the challenges you've run into with Wizardly?
Yeah, so running out of resources internally, landing projects too quickly, and not having the manpower to fulfill that. So going on a mad dash hunt for people that we haven't tested, we haven't worked with before. Like we have some processes in place now to get them onboarded, give them a test project, see how we operate. We're always looking for that chemistry and character piece and component communication, like all that first before looking for skill because so many people have skill. But yeah, that's it. That's the problem, or it's the opposite problem. We've got our team and they cost money and the projects dry up and we've got recurring revenue, which is wonderful, but not enough to cover that
Mm,
team. And so then we have that conversation, which is always tough about, we've made promises to all of our
mm,
contractors about even if they're in a contractor world with us, we try and let them know that they've got steady income with us.
mm-hmm.
And so just learning like how we can move the pieces around on the chessboard to continue revenue. So
Hmm.
continue the payroll.
Well, and I'm glad you brought that up. The dynamic of, you got your employees and your contractors. It sounds like you have run into some of those cycles or those
Yes,
seasons where, things were going well, and then there's a little bit of a contraction,
totally.
um, and a little bit of that roller coaster. Do you find, first and foremost, that those typically are seasonal, like
Yeah.
given times of the year, or like, yeah, what are the patterns you've seen over the years?
Yeah, such a good question because I don't think we could map it when we were working with small to medium sized companies because they were in various industries and they themselves weren't dependent on like cyclical growth or income. We didn't see a pattern until we jumped ship. We started working with more medium to larger companies that have a marketing team, but they don't have a design team. And so they would
Mm,
come looking for us, and they generally come looking January to April. We do tons of sales meetings. We send, tons and tons of proposals out the door. And then we land all the rest of the year's projects and we work through them and then it starts over again.
mm,
January is a little bit quiet and we do a ton of internal branding. But yeah, that's finally, we're able to recognize that we're always going to have a crazy summer. Usually
mm,
we're going to have a bunch of crazy end of the year, like I got to get this done projects.
yeah.
But that's been helpful. That's been really good. I'd say we're only 2 years into that leap.
Mm.
And so we can now forecast and hire the people ahead of time and stuff like that. But that's a really
That's really
thoughtful
good.
question. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. And with the contractors specifically, I mean, like, I don't know, do you guys have like a shorthand that you found has worked well in terms of like how, like, percentage? What should the percentage split be between contractors and employees or anything like that?
Yeah. Ooh, financial questions. Yeah.
Not to put you on the spot.
No. You know what? I don't know the numbers
Yeah.
off the top of my head, but we know that there's a core six of us that has to exist on every project.
Hmm.
So what we do is we bake those into the cost of the proposal, and then we also include an additional like 5 to 10 contractors that come in, but aren't 100% necessary. And then on top of that, we're adding our profit. And then, contingencies, and then usually a referral fee we're sending back to the people who brought us the projects. So that's how we estimate our projects.
Yeah. Who have been like some of the best referral partners, I guess, like pulling on that thread?
Yeah, independent marketing consultants. Yeah, so we have a few campaigns going to them right now on LinkedIn and then email newsletters. We've found that they're piecing things together at the same rate that we are. So they're constantly in motion looking for partners, looking for sometimes design teams to execute. And we share fees with a lot of companies right now, which has been a really cool thing. Like we actually get a lot of fees from companies as well. So
interesting. And I imagine like when you guys made that switch a couple of years back, where you kind of moved up market a little bit, medium-sized to large enterprise clients, having those networks is probably even more crucial because I don't know, from the outside looking in, I can imagine getting into some of these larger clients, landing these larger accounts. That's really challenging to build trust in a short period of time.
Yes, you're so right. Actually, I don't think you can build trust in a short amount of time with those guys. Yeah, I think it's going to be about a year of courting, of calls, of even if there's a referral, even just the straight up legal process of writing contracts for those companies. We didn't have to have a lawyer on staff until 2 years ago to review all of our proposals and contracts. And so those clients, they take a bit longer to land, but they have a bigger payout. So the independent marketing consultants are generally bringing us the more mid-sized projects, mid to small-sized projects. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Well, I want to ask one last question as it relates to growth before I move on to the next question. And this one just has to do with thinking like after when you move into kind of a next life stage, right? So we've addressed, you've got medium-sized kids. So, it's not going to be forever that they will be in the house. And so as you look towards like empty nesting and you look towards like this next chapter of life, I mean, do you imagine that the way that you approach how you're doing stuff in your business is going to shift there? Or do you feel like it's still going to be, kind of that good balance between growing the business, but then also still focusing on other aspects of life?
Yeah, no, that's a question that has been keeping me up at night, but not in a bad way, like a good way, is where do I want to spend this time that I've been given? Like actually all three of my kids are in the same school schedule for the first time in a decade. So even just that was a huge gift of time back to me. And I've been a little bored. So I've probably been driving Wizardly people crazy because I'm coming up with way too many marketing ideas and video ideas and all that stuff. That's where those marketing videos you mentioned, was a brainchild of mine.
There we go.
So I want to suss that out, and I don't know what the next level of Wizardly looks like. I know it means we will have to continue to grow, scale up the chain as leaders and add those manager level people. So that's in the works. I think it means that we can focus and zero in on like strategy and thought leadership in our field of work and brand and visual identity and creative direction and stuff like that. I have big plans for that, and I'm excited to just like tell the world what I've learned the last 12 years. And so that's where my brain gets excited about the future. And I really don't know if I'll have to like make any changes at Wizardly because we have such a good team that's already working. We work really well together. So I'm hoping I can do all of it just with this new time I've been given as a mom.
Yeah. I think that's good. I think that's so good. I mean, but part of the where this question comes from is I was interviewing a gentleman back in the first season and was just floored. This guy, I want to say he's in his mid to late 60s. And part of his retirement plan, I mean, he's totally fine. He doesn't like need the money, but he started an agency just because he's like, I have all this time on my hand. And I'm like, my dude, I'm so impressed by this.
I don't know that
I know, right?
Yes, I have lots of friends that have gotten to retirement and given their agency up, very happily. Like, here you go. Hmm.
I know. I
That
was
is
I was
really
impressed, but
fascinating.
but his whole thought was he's like, well, I mean, like it's essentially my hobby, right? Like this is where I'm going to put my time and energy, and I've got this time, I've got the space, and my mind is still sharp. Like I might as well use
Ah,
it. So I was just curious if any of that kind of has rolled around in your mind.
yeah, I am a little too scattered probably entrepreneurship wise, because I mean, you should see the family slideshows that I present to my husband and kids about my next business venture. It
Oh, I
just
love
goes
that.
off the rails. I mean, I real estate, event planning, like I run the gamut. Just last week I was gonna, start a craft kit company on Etsy. So I didn't realize what it looked like until my 10-year-old created her own pitch deck to buy a bearded dragon, and she presented it to the family a few weeks ago, and I was like, wow, this is crazy. This is
But
mini me.
but I was also gonna say like that's got to also be like a little bit of like proud mom moment. Like look at the little entrepreneur that I've created.
Exactly. Oh yeah. Oh, she's great. Yeah. Well, that retirement plan sounds way better than Sudoku.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love it.
Agreed.
Hmm.
Wholeheartedly agree. Yeah, I'm, going back to something you had said earlier about just finding contentment and like focusing on contentment in the work that you have. One of the things that I've been practicing, actually, I was just talking with my wife about this, is we're coming up to the 2 year mark. So 2 years since I no longer was taking contracts through like a third party agency. Because when
Okay.
I first started my company, just to make ends meet for the family, I was taking, one-off contracts here and there. But it's, we're coming up on 2 years that I've been completely untethered from that. And like exercising contentment of like, yeah, there's things that I still want to grow in my business for sure.
Hmm.
But I'm so happy that for 2 years, not only was I able to provide a job for my accountant, who is phenomenal, by the way,
Hmm.
but I can also put food on the table for my family, and we are doing just fine. I'm like, that's huge. That's a
Yeah.
huge mark.
Don't we
So,
have such short memories too? I mean, I have to kick myself all the time. Like, remember you, yeah, and be grateful of what the journey you just had that fed you. You've had a
mhm,
consistent salary for 12 years. That's a dream.
mhm, mhm.
Incredible. So,
Totally case. Well, I want to dive in here. Something else that came up when you and I were first talking was even just the story and the journey of your partnership.
mhm,
You've got a business partner, not married to your business partner. This is a
mhm,
friend of yours, and I remember you had just brought up the fact that you've got a unique story. Kind of a culminating event, something that a tough season that you guys eventually came to, and how you guys kind of worked through that. So, would you mind give us a little bit of backstory, like what led up to that kind of major turning point, and then we'll dive into the turning point after that.
awesome. Yeah. So, okay. Well, like I mentioned earlier, we were independent freelancers. I did design, he did development, and we just needed each other, and we kind of closed the loop for our clients, and we worked really well together. And during those early days, he actually married into my husband's family. So he's married to my husband's sister, which is great. Yeah. So then we were family, and then we looked up one day, had the same clients. So we threw the towel in together. Is that the right saying? We threw in together to form a company. Yeah. And I will tell you right off the bat, like one huge mistake that I made is I didn't think about the what we were actually building together. I didn't sit and think, oh, like we're now an entity. We have potential. We could, if we're successful, we're going to end up landing more clients than we can handle. And this is how we might manage that. Or, in 5 years' time, my family life's going to change a little and I want something different out of work. So we had zero of those conversations, which I don't recommend. And we just decided to put the label on it and continue business as usual. So, and I think anybody can guess where it went. Like we had good success. One side of our company, the design side where I was, grew very, very quickly in 2020. And I was just working my butt off. And so what happened was it caused a lot of hurt, frustration. I did not handle it well. I clammed up. We had a dark year, 2021, where we were just at odds. We weren't good in communication. We weren't good in like sharing and continuing to work on the company together. But I will say, like, for in that point in time, we didn't know or I naively didn't know I had a company. You know, I thought I do this job, he does this job. We come together, we got a good thing going. And so it's really only been the last 3 years that I've realized there's potential here. Let's build something. Like, how do we go about doing that? So reading traction, E-Myth revisited, like good to great, like all of I had to dive really deep into being a boss, being a business owner, like finance, all that stuff. So I'll pause there. Get your
Yeah,
reaction.
that's really interesting. So it sounds like part of what brought you to that kind of tipping point was maybe just we kind of just stumbled into business. There wasn't a lot of intentionality in terms of how things were being built. We just kind of did it. Is that right?
Yeah. We did the job. We did not build a company together.
Interesting.
So the turning point was actually, I didn't know that we were going to make it. And I will say, I'll just go ahead and tell you the end of the story. We made it, and I've never seen a relationship go bad and then recover so beautiful. And that's a real gift that we got to do that. And it doesn't happen that way with 50-50 partnerships. You're going into it. It's a marriage of finances. It's a decision to build something together. And I just lucked out that I got a partner that was capable of like coming together, working through hard things. Because let's face it, there are hard things every day at work. Like if you can't work them through together with your partners, you're not really going to make it. But so we decided to get some business coaching, and that was a turning point. We went on a weekend away with these two coaches, and they had us split up at first and just map out what we wanted work to be. Like we were having a conflict because I was working a lot and I hadn't shared the load with Josh. But what did I want out of work? These are like literally questions I hadn't asked myself before, which is hilarious. But I've always been just nose down, let's grind it out, like get it done. So when we came back together and we were comparing notes, our papers said the same thing. Like what we actually wanted out of work was the same thing. And we decided that all we really had to do was recover relationally and build trust back relationally in order to grow and build this company together because we wanted the same thing. So it's really cool.
Interesting. So I think some type A personalities need to hear this part here, Meg, where you were talking about. I mean, you already shared that you are a little bit more driven. I'm going to say that it's probably a little bit more type A, where your business partner is a little bit more, maybe a little bit more of the thoughtful, more grounding. And so if I'm hearing you right, as the one that was a little bit more type A, more driven, you were just like putting on your shoulders just like all the work. You were just do.
Yep.
And you felt like that ended up creating the barrier between you and your partner.
Yeah, I think that and me thinking, well, if I'm already doing all this work, why don't I just do it solo? And not recognizing the importance of what I needed in the moment, and I think what he needed was we needed to share the load. What we needed to do was have a leadership team that could cover for each other when we had outages. Being a parent, when we wanted to go on vacation with our kids, I couldn't see because I was just so overworked and tired, I could not see the potential of our partnership anymore. But I see it now and I use it now. Like I was out of town for 2 weeks this summer and didn't check in one time because Josh and I are interchangeable now. But we had a lot of work to do to become interchangeable, and we knew we had to like band together to do that. But we now are work really well together, and it doesn't always work that way. So I feel very blessed and lucky.
Yeah, I was gonna say that your guys' recovery trajectory, that's not the norm. Like typically that's what causes things to just break down and people go their separate ways.
Yeah, I have a dream someday of us, because we talk about it openly to our team and we've written about it. And I have a dream of us doing some coaching with 50-50 partnerships, because I hear this story all the time. And I don't think that they know what their options are. And I don't think they have any hope. and it can be very anxiety ridden and
Mhm.
really grind you down, because we spend a lot of time at work, so it really needs to work for us,
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, can we dive further in? I want to maybe take a layer below. So you've already mentioned things like reading traction, you're reading
Yeah.
like good to great, those kinds of things. So there's definitely like management methodology that you guys have recently employed in your business. Now, I
Yes.
myself am very aware of and come in contact with EOS often. I imagine that's kind of the framework you guys have been using, or do you use something a little
Correct.
bit different?
Yeah, so the business coaches just put us right on that EOS track immediately.
Hmm.
They said, your partnership, your leadership, your team needs structure, and
Mhm.
here's the structure, and it worked immediately. I mean, it's a little boxed in at times. I don't know if you feel that with EOS,
Mhm.
especially the meetings. So I had to
Yes.
get used to that, but I see the value in it now, and I don't know how to run a company any other way.
Oh yeah.
I can't see without the rocks, without the projecting our quarterly, like looking into the future and being able to goal set together. I don't know
Mhm.
how we could be maybe if it was just, one guy or woman at the top as CEO,
Yeah.
and they can make all these decisions together in their mind and then
Mhm.
implement them. But with a team, with a leadership team, I don't know a better system out there than EOS.
Oh, totally.
So
Well, if for nothing else, like the L10s, like being able to have that time and space for the IDS, the identify, discuss, and solve.
I love that one.
So good, so helpful.
I use that in my marriage.
Interesting. Do
Like,
you really?
break it down. Yeah.
Yes. Let's break this stuff down. Let's wait to
Yeah.
let's. We're not going to jump to
But
solutions
what
here
is
just
the
yet.
real problem? Yeah. What
Right.
is the real problem? Let's break it down. Oh,
I love
yeah.
it. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, so I guess one thing I'm curious about with your guys's partnership
Mhm.
is, had you, trying to think how best to phrase this, had you, when you guys got together using EOS,
Mhm.
I'm assuming like one of you guys kind of took over more like the visionary role and one
Yeah.
more the integrator role. Did you find yourself more in the visionary role, or which one did you fit best into?
Yeah. So it was a little bit at that point in time, we were still trying to get along and hadn't quite created our flow yet. So we are still like, what do you need? Okay, what do I need? Let's work together. So I felt more visionary, and Josh felt also more visionary. And so we had a conversation where we both decided, you know what, we could both give that up. So what if we just try it one way for 3 months, and if we don't like it, we'll switch. And then we'll try it the other way. And so I started as the visionary, and he started as the integrator, and we never switched. So we really
Interesting.
liked it. Yeah,
Yeah.
we really liked it. And I wouldn't say that he like fought very hard. He was actually probably the one that was like, well, let's just, this doesn't matter that much to me. Like, I think we're both capable of playing this role. You put on the hat, you have to be that visionary person, or you put on the hat, you have to be that integrated person, and then you go back
Mhm.
to being, Meg and Josh.
Mhm.
So yeah, that was how we decided to do it.
Which that's super helpful, because I think that's actually a pretty common thing with 50/50 partners is it's
Yeah,
like, well, I think, especially if you are going to start an agency, as an example, like you're probably both visionary and integrator. Like
of
you
course.
can't really get on. Somebody
No,
was telling me about this framework. They said that they don't typically use integrator and visionary until they're like at like 5 million or something like that in revenue. They
smart.
said what you really need when you're first starting off is a barbarian
Oh,
who can do everything.
I gotta
It's like,
write that word down.
yeah, a barbarian.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
there.
yeah, I can definitely see that. But I think with that kind of that awkward dance of like, well, who's going to do what? I think something you had said that I was also curious about is you said that you were able to take some time off, and when you're in that role of visionary and he's in the role of integrator, like functionally, how does that work? I don't know. This is just speaking of my own ignorance, but how does
No,
that
no, no.
work?
So I like what you said about how we're both visionary, we're both integrated, because I don't find that we ever have to turn that on. What I find is that I have to hold back. I have to hold back my integrator to
Mm,
let Josh play the role of integrator, and he's probably holding back his visionary to let. So I don't think it doesn't feel like a major change. It's just whoever is playing that role in that meeting, and whoever, like, I'm accountable to being the visionary, and he's accountable to being the integrator, and that's how we run. I mean, we're a small team still, so that's how we run like sales and marketing is, I'm wearing that, and that in my accountability chart, that's in my bucket. But I'm answering to Josh, who's the integrator, and he's answering to me, the visionary. So, it's all a pretty tight chain anyway. So when it comes to me turning, like taking off for a week or two, I think it's just really natural for him to just slip into that role, play that role.
That's super helpful.
Yeah, it's really cool.
And I think that especially when you have those frameworks like the L10 meetings and you have the rocks and stuff, there's a certain degree to which like you don't need to be perfect at being the integrator. Like if he's taking time off, you don't need to be a perfect integrator, but you can pick up that role somewhat easily.
Yeah, I think so too. Have you ever done the same page meetings from Traction?
No, I have not.
Okay,
Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so same page meetings are for partnerships to only connect on a relational level. And we practice them really diligently. And so it is life-changing when you get into the habit of doing it, because at work, bad things happen, or frustrating things happen, and you get upset, or there are feelings in the room. We try to have like a very low fuss team in general. Like that's one of our problem solving, low fuss. Like we're chill, but it doesn't matter. Like things build up. So same page meetings are the place that we bring the built up things. And one thing that's really nice is they're removed from the situation by sometimes 2 weeks. So sometimes I put a frustration on the same page meeting list, and then by the time we get there, it's not a frustration anymore, which is great, because I am more like I'm never been afraid of conflict, so I'll just confront all day long. Whereas other people feel beat down by that naturally. So it's a beautiful thing for my personality type. So I put things on the list. There are usually only like 1 or 2 things I have to bring up. By the time we do our same page meetings, we usually have a beer together, just chit chat. It's not about work. Anything bothering you? Any way I can be a better partner to you? Like it's really good practice. So
it's wild how much, because as you're saying this stuff, it's wild how much I'm like, oh, this is essentially how to have a healthy and thriving marriage 101.
I know. We have talked about that a lot. And that will be like, if I could finish this segment with anything, it's like, if you're ready to go into a 50-50 partnership, treat it like that. Treat it like a marriage, and, only in the work way.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, agreed
but you should give that much time and attention, and like, yeah, it's what it takes. So
yeah. So what I'll just kind of give my own experience with 50-50 partnership. So now I'll preface this by saying I still have so much respect and like really love the guy that I was. We were doing going to try to go in and create a 50-50 partnership. We were creating Wilson Talbot was what we were creating. This is a couple months back.
Okay.
And there's a reason we wanted to partner, is because we both had very similar values, outlook, and perspective on life. And we had a pretty similar-ish general goal of what we were trying to build. And so we did try to employ, as best as we could, some of the principles from Traction.
Yeah.
And so we did our weekly L10 meetings. We had some rocks. We had our VTO. We had all this kind of stuff created. And it was super helpful, because what it helped us to identify is, after a quarter being together, we were able to, with like really solid data in front of us, show that here are the metrics we're shooting for. And the fact that we're not able to meet these metrics, there's something deeper that we need to dive into. And lo and behold, as time had gone on, we realized we were just on 2 different paths. And we hadn't right. And we hadn't formalized anything. We hadn't officially created a legal entity yet. But it was really helpful for us, because we could maintain still have a good friendship with him. We're still referring each other work, but just decided we were going to stay strategic partners.
I actually think that could be a really great model for, should I go into partnership with this person? Because it will always expose, like, do you have enough structure? Do you have enough, support? Or like, it will always expose the weak spots in any company. Just the routine of it, like it just forces things up.
Oh, totally. Yeah. And it's one thing, you can set these goals, but when you're every single week, you have to give an update on like, how am I making progress on my rocks? And like, how are the metrics doing? Like, right. you can't hide from that stuff.
No, you can't. Yeah, that's so real.
That is, yeah. So all that to say, for people who are listening, if you are considering, or you've already been in a partnership for a little while, and you don't have a management methodology or a leadership methodology, Meg is a great testament to this. But implementing something like EOS, I'm also familiar with System and Soul, but they're all very, very similar. They've got maybe different terminology, but all similar approaches.
Mm-hmm.
Would highly recommend having something of a leadership team established.
Love that. Yeah. Good. Great
Totally
advice.
agree. Well, I know, Meg, we have like a lot more that I was preparing to talk about, but we just kind of went down and
We
talked
did.
about
It's so
what
fun.
was important.
Yes,
Um,
exactly.
so what I want to do, Meg, is I want to maybe try to land the plane a little bit here.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about just some of your perspectives as you are looking now into 2024 and 2025. This is totally off script, but this is what's coming to
Okay.
mind.
Hit me.
Because you had mentioned, plans for growth coming into the end of the year and looking into next year. I'd love for you to share your thoughts, not only speak to 2023 and 2024, just from what you've seen in the economy as an agency
Yeah.
owner, but talk to us about your outlook and your perspective on future growth coming into the tail end of 2024 and into 2025.
Yeah. Okay. Wonderful question. I think myself and a lot of my other agency friends had a really tough year in 2023. It was the first year Wizardly's growth plateaued. And I heard that from a lot of companies. And there are a lot of agencies and freelancers on the market right now. So I noticed a trend that when we were in a sales proposal process with a potential client, we were in it with maybe an extra 10 people that we hadn't been in it before. So usually we were up against 5 to 6 people or agencies. And we were one of 26 with one client in the spring. So that actually forced me to get very detailed with how we were going to structure our sales. So I don't want to go into that. For 2024, we're back on track with our growth. And I am very hopeful that 2025 will be the same. We are predicting that it will be. We're shooting for 20% growth in
Mm.
2025. And that's a lot for us. And so we're putting we're putting new marketing things into rhythm right now. I think, primarily more than anything, we want to be good partners when we're in a project, and that's going to propel growth in our company more than anything else. Is like I mentioned, that no fuss approach, like giving to our clients, and seeing if they're capable of giving back when it's their turn.
Mm.
But being a good partner, pushing new marketing efforts out into the world, but then a few other, like some sales tricks that I've learned in this last year. I'm working on those to kind of put those out in the world in 2025. So I'm really excited. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily share the special sauce if you're not feeling comfortable with it, but I'd love to hear. I mean, I hear plenty from different people about like what marketing they're trying. I'd love to hear from your point of view. Like, what do you feel like is going to be resonant coming into this, tail end of this year and into next year in terms of your guys' marketing strategy?
Um, Man, that is the jury's out as far as the numbers go. So we're early
Mm.
stages in trying a few new things. And I think email marketing might be bottom of the list going into
Mm.
2025. So there's just so much noise out there that it's really, unless you're playing with a very large volume of lists and numbers for email marketing, I'm not sure that it hasn't been converting for us. So
Mm.
I got some good advice from a marketing friend recently about just showing up and being a real human, having real conversations. Because I for a while was trying to automate conversations, which is never really a great thing to do. What I had to do as a leader is automate the other areas that were stealing my time,
Mm.
like admin, operations, communications with our team. Like I had to automate that so that I could actually show up and be a real human in all the DMs, starting and sparking conversations, really showing. I do maybe 20, 15-minute meetings a week just out of LinkedIn DMs where I'm just
Wow.
like, hey, who are you? How can I help you? And I have this master like Monday.com list where I'm making connections for people, just being friendly, and stuff like that. So I'm hoping that will convert.
Hmm.
And so far it has this year. So we're going to keep going down that train.
Yeah, I love that. And I love the approach of, you're not saying don't automate. You're not saying don't use AI. You're just saying use it on the things that are the appropriate place for them, which is maybe some of the more, non-value added, non-people facing environments.
Yes, exactly. There are so many recurring tasks that I do every week. And when I start seeing a pattern in them, that's when I know I can hand them off to somebody. But I keep the ones that where I need to show my personality or the brand of Wizardly, where that brand needs to shine through the most. That's where I keep those things in my bucket, like writing, meeting with people, having conversations, emailing, stuff like that. So
I love that. Well, Meg, we do have tons more questions, but we've run out of time, unfortunately.
I'll do it again.
But I was going to say, we're going to have to just do it again. We'll just have to have you on for round two.
I have lots more to say, always.
If you're up for it. I love it. I love it. So Meg, before we head out, I want to give you an opportunity for people who've listened, who have questions, or they want to even just like follow the story of Wizardly. What's the best way to get a hold of you or to follow your story?
Yes, so I am the most active on LinkedIn at Meg Schlabs, and wizardly.co/resources has a ton of my writing on our resources page or my videos where I'm sharing branding tips and tricks. One thing we didn't get into some of my AI tools today, but when this podcast goes live, I'm also posting a blog live to your listeners, and I'm sharing my brand development GPT prompts. So if anybody wants those, they will have access to them.
Man, I almost feel like we're going to have to release this episode early so people can get their hands on that.
Yeah. Whenever. Yeah, you tell me when it goes live and I'll push the button. So
I love it. Well, Meg, I really, really appreciate you coming on the show. I've learned a lot. We've talked a lot about the experience of growing intentionally, not necessarily growing crazy fast, and also growing in an agency with a partner that you've had conflict with, and you guys have come out successful at the end of it. So thank you for sharing your experiences and your insight.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Tony. Appreciate it.
And thank you to our listeners. If you found value in our episode today, please leave us a review and tell your friends about us. If you're interested in being a guest on our show as a digital agency owner, or maybe somebody with insights that can help digital agencies grow, head over to our website to learn more at acquip.com/podcast guest. That's acquip.com/podcast guest.